Hello, dudes and dudettes. Marc Daniel Nelson here with MakeMineMusic. I've been getting a handful of emails the last few weeks about one topic, and I think it's just time to talk about it. Predelay. What is predelay in reverb? For me, predelay is really simple. It's when the reverb starts after the source you're giving it to. So if you had the vocal and you put a 100 millisecond delay on that reverb send, it would take 100 milliseconds for that reverb to start. That means that you're creating a depth imagery in your stereo image, which is causing the vocal to sound forward and the reverb behind it. Now, if you kind of juice up the predelay, and the higher you go, the more the reverb sounds like it's kind of distancing itself. Now, a lot of engineers like to use that as a trick to get kind of depth and size out of your vocal. Now, the way I was taught was you do a mathematical equation to set your predelay against your BPM of the song. And it was like a 3-step division problem. And at that moment, I just completely lost interest because I hate math. I don't reflect really well with numbers trying to explain creative things to me. What I want to do today is showcase a vocal, bring up the reverb, and go around and kind of fuss around with the predelay and just kind of talk about what I'm hearing. This is a song by Laura Lewis, and the song is called Old Gray Pine. Awesome song, really impactful vocal, a lot of depth, a lot of space, and by juicing up and down the predelay, we're going to be able to see exactly what it does without the mathematics, without any of that nonsense that you don't really need to understand music, because it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be a math assignment. I don't really touch that. I just kind of go around two different areas, 75-ish milliseconds and 120 milliseconds as a starting point. Those two kind of give me, depending on the song, a relative of a good place to start. That gives that perfect kind of separation of the reverb and the vocal, and the way it sits in the mix showcases that. And I'm opening it in the new Pro Tools system in all black mode, so bear with me. I might not like this very much. It's kind of new. I don't know if I even enjoy it. So bear with me with the Pro Tools coloring. I'm going to try to see if I actually can work this way, but I figured I'd give it a try today. And in the meantime, just listen to the way the vocal is in front of the reverb. There's a depth, there's a imagery thing that's happening where the vocal is leaning forward. It doesn't sound dry, it just sounds separate from the reverb, which is causing you to feel like it's three-dimensional.
She won't change for the seasons, doesn't bring the desert shade, but you should see her dance when the sunlight fades. The old gray pine, there'll come a time, there'll come a time you'll see beauty in the old gray pine.
Now, the cool thing about this track is you can really hear how everything is in its own space. So what you're trying to achieve is glue, but not make it sound like everything is one-dimensional, slapped against the wall. And by doing that, you open up the predelay and you can shift the reverb to sit behind the vocal or in front. Now, traditionally, there's probably a really good, accurate way to describe what predelay is really doing. I have no idea, other than it's separating the dry source with the wet source, and how much time between that is your predelay. For me, when I first heard it, it was like one of the biggest mind-opening kind of moments of like, what the heck is going on? This is incredible. This is exactly what I hear when I hear depth and like everything I hear in a vocal. And it was all based off of the delay of the reverb. Come on, this is crazy. So I don't know. It was a really big moment for me like 15 years ago, really diving in and kind of understanding what I'm hearing and going, there's your 3D right there. It doesn't even matter if it's a crappy reverb. It doesn't matter if it's a, digital plugin that comes with your program. the pre-delay really does make it more expensive sounding, and it makes it sound like a record. So let's play around with the pre-delay on this vocal track on the verse going into the chorus. Now it's starting right now, as you see, it's starting at 122 milliseconds. That's what I have it at. You know, some songs I will automate the pre-delay depending on what's happening in the verses versus the choruses, but this guy is just rolling at 122. Let's take it off.
Song it is the crickets.
So here the reverb, it's kind of flat.
End or begin. When the morning light comes, she steadies her limb.
Let's bring it in at 120 again.
The old gray pine. There'll come a time.
You know, it almost sounds less
There'll
wet.
come a time you'll see beauty in the old gray pine.
But what it's doing is making the instruments sound behind it as well. It's really a cool trick. I want to just solo the vocal and the guitar. Let's listen to just that and just go between 70, 0, 120, 200. Let's just be kind of radical and just fool around with it a little bit and just really listen to the vocal kind of stretching and the reverbs kind of going behind and the guitar even changing, which is weird because the guitar on purpose for this song is dry. And you can tell just by changing the reverb of the vocal, it's creating all of this depth.
She won't change for the seasons.
Let's go all the way up,
Doesn't
500.
bring the desert shade. But you should see her dance when the sunlight fades.
Now what that's doing obviously is it's almost making you seasick. It's creating some kind of push and pull. So there's got to be a kind of sweet spot to be able to sit. And let's just bring it around 250 and see what that sounds like.
She won't change for the seasons.
Still feels a little aggressive for
Doesn't
me.
bring the desert shade. But you should see her dance when the sunlight.
Let's go all the way back down to 28.
She won't change for the seasons.
It sounds wetter and it sounds flatter.
Doesn't bring the desert shade. But you should see her dance when the sunlight fades.
Gonna kick it up to 370.
Gray pine.
Now on the chorus it works pretty cool.
There'll come a time. There'll come a time you'll see beauty.
Let's pop this in the full mix with 360.
The old gray pine.
That's cool.
There'll come a time. There'll come a time you'll see.
Now that would be a neat trick to actually have it at 120 on the whole song until the last chorus and maybe juice that up with an automated send on the pre-delay up to 350 and it creates almost like an echo there. I don't know if I like it below 120 for this song because the shorter you go, the more flat the vocal becomes because there's so much space on the drums. The B3's going and it's kind of a pad, but that's the only thing that's really kind of creating any kind of sustain. Other than the electric guitars and the bass, it just feels like it needs something to kind of create a little more sustaining depth. So that's why I think at 120 it feels pretty good. Let me come down to 50 and try that.
The old gray pine. There'll come a time.
It's not bad. I just almost feel like it's not
There'll come
doing...
a time you'll see beauty in the old gray pine.
The same feeling that 120 would do.
The old gray pine.
You can hear it just tickling and feathering.
There'll come a time. There'll come a time. You'll see beauty in the old gray pine.
Now, the thing to think about when you're using Predelay is trying to remember that it's fun. You don't have to like really dive in and make sure mathematically you're exact. So if I'm saying 120 and it's 128, it's not the end of the universe. There might be a little bit of wiggle room before it starts kind of going out. But honestly, just have fun with it. That's what we're doing here. We're making music. We're not trying to like be mathematicians and kind of create these absolute perfect like delay times and reverb delay times that create a perfect timing thing. Sometimes that works to tap in things, but for reverb, you can be a little kind of radical and still have a movement to be able to get some kind of emotional connection to it without it being kind of dissonant. So that's my note for today. Real fast, an overview again. Predelay is simple. It's the delay that's between the dry signal and the reverb. That's all it is. It's not math. You can't get it wrong. It's all about feeling. You'll know when you hit it. It's weird. It's like, oh, there it is. That makes it sound better. Have fun mixing. Screw around. Put 5,000 milliseconds of pre-delay on something. Just make sure that you guys are having fun, because that's all this is about. Now, before we go, let's do one little test here. I'm going to start this chorus at 120, and I'm going to slowly automate it up to 300 like we talked about earlier, and see exactly what that will do by the end of the chorus, because maybe you can have a change in automated pre-delay that will create kind of a movement at the very end, and see what it does. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to download the multi-tracks here and have fun mixing.
There'll come a time. There'll come a time. You'll see beauty